There we go. And we're up and running. Um,
That fixed it.
that fixed it. It wasn't recording like it wasn't giving me a length time or whatever. I didn't think it was recording, but it's working. Anywho, speaking of books, I'm reading Tribe by Sebastian Younger. You know what that is? Have you heard of that?
Did you say Sebastian Unger?
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard of the author. I don't know what you're talking about though.
Well, it's a book on. Here, I've got the cover right here. I'll kind of give you a rundown, and it's talking about.
Nice book jacket.
Huh?
That's a nice book jacket.
It is very nice. It was a fucking $27 book. It better be fucking nice. It's good though. It's basically talking about like how we as people like to belong to groups and that sort of thing, and it's kind of natural for us. It goes back to like our very beginnings of becoming part of a tribe and all that shit. And it starts off pretty quickly talking about English settlers moving, like either getting captured or basically just leaving society and joining with Native American or American Indian as they're called these days tribes, and that like by the time they would be ready to come back or something would happen to where they would have to come back to society, they would usually end up leaving again.
Hmm.
It's very, very interesting. If you'll give me just a second, I had some stuff written down. Might be right here. A couple little things I wrote down just because Benjamin Franklin, he quotes him in this. He mentions a few things. I want to make sure I'm getting it right, so I don't. Basically, it was to the effect of, when they come back to our society, we have no chance of keeping them in our society.
So like an allegory of the cave type thing, or
Sorta, kinda. Let me see if it, because I think it's going to be right here. It's an essay by him. No, it was a letter. He wrote in a letter that he said that if they leave and we bring them back to our society, we have no chance of keeping them in our society again because the nature of native culture or whatever is just that it kind of speaks to the soul or whatever.
right?
And he makes the point to say that it's very easy to romanticize the culture and all that stuff and not realize that there was some pretty I guess is a loaded term in this topic, but pretty savage like behavior, torturing for days on end and until the point of death and that sort of thing. So it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies, so to speak, but people really seem to like that culture. And wanted to belong to it, and it kind of alludes to. He goes into the Blitzkrieg, in England at the time, and talking about how much people banding together like that. Like the British government basically assumed that they were going to have big cases of like psychiatric admissions and stuff along those lines, but it actually went down. The percentages went down during the Blitzkrieg because people banded together and felt a sense of purpose because of the direct threat to the society or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's
I mean, being from England, you wouldn't ordinarily have that.
right, exactly. And it was like, and it just went kind of completely counter to, how they thought it was going to go. And they had like these observers, I guess, just regular people that they paid to kind of, look and see how things were going or whatever. And, they were basically completely against everything they thought was going to happen. People like felt a sense of purpose. They felt like they belonged and that sort of thing. And it drove down cases of, mental health people getting admitted into hospitals for mental health reasons and depression rates and stuff like that. And it's just very, very interesting. He uses a few examples. Let's see, the siege of Sarajevo back in what war was that? Is that the Yugoslavian? Is that in Yugoslavia?
Wait, you say Sarajevo?
Yeah,
That was the Bosnian War, wasn't it?
Bosnian war. Okay. And anyways, same sort of thing with the siege of Sarajevo. You got a modern city, with people, civilians still living in it, under siege completely. People getting sniped in streets and crazy stuff like that. And that nowadays people kind of longed for that sort of that time again, because it's like, it gave them a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
It made people band together, and it made them, it made it greater than the self, which I guess, would be one of my criticisms of our modern day society, is that, it's all self-focused, and I don't think people get a lot of benefit from that.
Well, it's I know it gets brought up a lot, but it's maybe not this way. I don't know, but I know that nihilism gets used a lot as kind of like an attribute of modern society, especially Western society. But I think it's more like solipsistic. I think I'm saying that right. Solipsistic.
Mm.
That sounds about right. We'll go with that. Um, might not even be a word. I don't know.
Hey, we just make them up around here. It sounds smart,
But I mean, solipsism. If you're not, you know what that is.
No, I don't actually.
Solipsism basically means that you have this like personal philosophy that, and this is drastically oversimplifying it, but that you're the only thing actually in existence.
Uh-huh.
Like you yourself are the only sapient being, and there's a lot of different ideas that are tied into that, like life is just a test, and everybody around you are like puppets being operated by a higher power to kind of test you.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, a lot of really bad like serial killers and people like that had this kind of worldview or philosophy, but it's in a simpler sense of that. Our society's kind of geared that way. It's people look out for them and their own.
Right.
Without a whole lot of focus, people, the texting and driving thing. People, there's all the PSAs around. It's like, don't you realize how dangerous that is? You could kill yourself or others. Well, when people are doing it, they're doing it to accomplish their own ends, their own idea at the time. So while they're doing that, they don't give a shit about what else is going on, because that doesn't directly relate to them and their entertainment in the moment.
Right.
And that's kind of how I look at it. Is for when people get so engulfed and engaged in things like that, I mean, definitely selfish by definition, but I think it runs a bit deeper than that. I'm having a little bit of trouble talking. I'm getting over a sinus infection.
It's all good.
But it's just like it's like the rest of the world disappears when people get engulfed in any of the trivialities or luxuries or anything like that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Like when you're playing video games or reading a book, and it's like, oh, where did the time go? It's like, as far as you're concerned, the world could have just burned down around you and rebuilt the entire time you were occupied, and you wouldn't know any different.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we all do it. I'm not trying to be holier than thou or anything.
Yeah.
I did it like 30 times today, and that's a low estimate.
Well, I mean, and it's definitely something I'm guilty of as well. But I mean, when you put it like that, I mean, that's very, very true. That you're not just responsible for yourself in that type of situation, especially if you're going down the highway. I mean, the fucking 30-car pileup or something behind you, like, it's just you're not responsible for only you in that time.
I like how you emphasize behind you, like they're already past it.
That's right. Fuck those people. And Luke has left the building, folks.
I went to go get a Q-tip.
Oh, well, I suppose we should address the lack of our other co-host, Josh.
Oh yeah, right.
Josh has decided that he's trying to get his own business started, and hell, more power to him. And so he's not going to have the time to continue recording with us, which is fine. And I'm very happy for him, because we've been talking for the last couple of months about something like this. And so he got his personal training license, or whatever the fuck you'd call it, and certification. And so he's starting his own business up. So good for him.
Congrats, Josh. Congrats. We're gonna miss him. For all the 7 of our listeners that really got attached to Josh as a character on this podcast. If you haven't had enough of him, if you can't get enough of him, if any of you are Twitter users, well, that's a shame, because he doesn't use that website. But we are looking forward to perhaps having him on at his own leisure and discretion in the future.
Yes.
He is always welcome.
Yes.
And at this point, I would like to announce that I am also leaving the podcast.
This is our final episode, folks. 4 episodes in.
I hope you all tune in to the Distributor podcast with Aaron. He'd love to have you.
Come on down, folks.
Yeah.
It is. I really hope, because actually he just put in his notice. I don't know if he mentioned it to you.
His notice to the podcast?
No.
Did you talk to Amy with HR?
There was no notice there. He just called me and said, "Fuck you, I'm done." No, no. He put in his notice with the company he works for, and so he's actually gonna he's trying to get his own studio going and all that stuff. So I don't know if he'll end up having maybe some more free time in the next couple of weeks. At the turn of the month though is when he's doing it. So that's potential there. This is just some shop talk, folks. Ignore this. But yeah, so there's the potential.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
There is the potential though that if he has enough free time, he can come back because like I say, he's not going to be busting out the drinks for the next in a couple weeks. He'll be done with that, so we'll see. I hope he can come back.
He'll be distributing Gaines, not soda.
Hey, good for him though. He talked about it a lot, and that's how kind of me and him became friends. Is we were both kind of going through a rough patch and trying to figure out what the fuck we wanted to do, and
That's how I met him working that job.
Yeah, I mean, and I knew him, and we had that class with him a couple years ago, but I didn't really know him, and then we just got to talking, and I realized that he was kind of in the same spot I was, where he was just tired of fucking distributing and.
Hey, this guy's a white supremacist too.
Yeah, we could get behind that. He likes Trump. He hates black people. I mean, come on.
All the boxes are ticked.
Yeah. But yeah, so we just got to talking about I don't know, like self improvement and I can't even really remember now. He gave me my copy of Tao Te Ching. Actually, it was his copy, and he gave it to me. And
that's typically how that works.
Dude, Josh is a smart. I hate that we lost him, honestly, because he's a smart dude, and I liked having him in the conversation. Hopefully, he can come back. If not, either way, that's fine. I'm happy for him. I hope he gets what he's wanting.
He'll be back. They all come back.
They all come back. I'm loving this shot of your crotch, by the way.
Every last. What's that?
I said I'm loving that shot of your crotch, by the way.
Oh yeah, these are slim fit.
Slim fit, yes. I noticed they were cupping your butt cheeks very nicely.
How did you notice that from the front?
Well, you turned around. You gave me a bit of a show there.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I needed to put a jacket on.
Oh, don't be sorry.
All right, let me put my earbuds in so I can venture out onto the veranda.
Time for a smoke.
Yes, it is. I've been drinking enough this evening. I can reward myself
with a nice cigarette.
Yeah, that's the rhythm I've been on for a little while now. Is just trying only to smoke when I drink.
Oh, you don't smoke at work anymore?
Nah.
Really?
Really don't smoke sober at all anymore.
Huh.
Or try not to anyway, but every once in a while it gets the best of me. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think I get through a pack in maybe 3 weeks. I don't know.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy shit. See, if it was me, I'd just stay drunk all the time so I could keep smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I've still never gotten the Dewey Award, so I'm not looking forward to trying that at any point.
Yeah, you don't want that. Definitely not.
Well, that and I know. In essence, there's never any excuse to drive while intoxicated, but like living here, like there literally is no excuse. Like anywhere you could want to go, you could either walk to or. Taxis are cheap here, and then there's Uber, Lyft, all that. So
yeah.
That, and I don't have any friends or any free time, so I never go out drinking anyway. I just drink at my apartment.
Well, drinking alone is the secret to a long and healthy life.
Isn't that what Elliott Smith said?
I don't know. I was just throwing that out there. That's an Aaron Clifton original right there.
I mean, you could juxtapose Elliot Jones with pretty much anybody else who was a drinker, all that died in their 20s or 30s.
Well,
actually, he gets a freebie because he killed him. He stabbed himself in the heart twice.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you figure once and do it, one and done. But he really wanted to go through with that.
Yeah. He was committed. You got to respect that at the very least. Damn, that's kind of like why are you gonna stab your? I'm just saying, like, obviously anybody can get a gun these days, so why don't you just fucking buy a gun?
Well, he was kind of I don't know if progenitor is the right word, but maybe influence of like kind of the emo indie scene.
Yeah.
So it's fitting.
Huh. Is that still a thing, emo? I mean, obviously I'm not part of the high school culture anymore, so I couldn't fucking tell you, but
Well, emo is a misattributed term that long predates us being in high school. So emo was like late '80s, early '90s. A
mm,
lot of your bands like was it American Football, Jimmy Eat World, bands like that. It's basically any really heavily like driven emotional lyrics over
yeah,
like really kind of soft rock, and then it got attributed to what's known as pop punk, which is what you're probably thinking of when you say emo, which is like Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco.
yeah.
Um, but for some reason that started being called emo too. I don't know if it's because that was the influence, but yeah, a lot of really prominent and kind of upper tier underground rock bands from the '90s were emo. It was kind of like you could almost put them in the same league as grunge at the time.
Okay.
But it's really really chill music. Most of it's really good. It's got kind of like a lo-fi
Mm,
production method to it, so
right.
it sounds a little garagey, but in a good way. It's very raw.
Well, what about the culture surrounding it? Is that still a thing?
You mean Hot Topic? I don't.
Well, no, I
I
mean
don't know.
just
I don't know.
you remember
I,
when
I
we
think
were.
I think there's I think they still have Hot Topics.
I don't ever see anybody like you remember when we were younger. There were like all these fuckers walking around in like ridiculously baggy, all black, like chains and
Oh,
all.
mall goths. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, goths. That's I guess what it would be.
No, no, no,
Goths.
no, no. You got to be careful there because there's a very fine line. You've
Mm,
got goth, and then you've got mall goth, which are the Nine Inch Nails, like Rivet Head type of people who
yeah.
had like the trip pants and all that.
Right.
And then you've got goth, which is just '80s jangly dark rock music, like The Cure, Bauhaus, Sushi and the Banshees, all that.
Uh huh.
Um, but yeah, it's there's a fine line there, and the mall goths. I don't know what you would actually call them, but they kind of take their cues from the gothic rock scene. But goth is like almost exclusive to the '80s. You have a
Okay.
lot of people that try to bring it back. There's still bands that are kind of like throwbacks to that era, but that's all goth was. It was an era.
Hmm. Would you say?
Also a lot of really good music that you'd probably like it.
Yeah. I mean, I had nothing like I don't know if Radiohead would be considered that style or whatever,
No,
but no.
no, not at all.
What
Not
would
even
you
close.
what would you consider Radiohead?
All over the place.
Uh, depending on which
they,
song.
I've aside from whatever they've been doing in the last few years, which I haven't really been paying attention to any artists in the last few years. Radiohead, I guess all encompassing. You could say they're like electronic rock,
Mm,
but they're all over the place, and they always have been.
okay.
You wouldn't think that because the only song of theirs that gets radio play is "Creep,"
Yeah.
but yeah, they're a very I don't know if you could call them like progressive rock just because of how they're constantly trying to do new things, but
Yeah.
Radiohead's very out there. They have a very kind of art method to how they do things. They've actually one of their albums, Kid A. No, it wasn't Kid A. It was shit. What was the other one? In Rainbows.
Okay.
All the actually that might be wrong too. Anyway, one of their albums, all the lyrics on the album, they printed up a bunch of words and then cut all of them out, and each individual word was placed into a hat, and they would just draw handfuls of words out of the hat, and that would whatever the handful was, that was the lyrics to their song.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's Radiohead's always kind of. There's a lot of bands that do this too, like My Bloody Valentine
Uh,
is a good one, but the lyrics are for a lot of musicians, lyrics are there for the core point, and then the music kind of goes along with the lyrics and provides an environment or like a soundscape for the lyrics.
yeah.
With some bands, the lyrics are the background, and then the music is the focus. So the lyrics really aren't there to do anything other than just occupy sound space.
Right. Kind of
The music
facilitate.
is the
Yeah.
main, like My Bloody Valentine. They were a '90s, I guess, shoegaze band, kind of like dream pop, dream rock, but all of their songs. If you find one of their albums, there's no lyrics inside the jacket or the booklet with the album because I don't think they even know what the lyrics are. It's like they're you can listen to like the music is so layered and there's so much put into the sound engineering of it
Yeah.
that's what sucks you in. The lyrics are just kind of there,
Right.
and they serve their purpose. It's almost like they're using the lyrics to keep rhythm. It's weird, but it's really cool how they do it. But the lyrics, if you can find like 7 or 8 decipherable words out of one of their songs, you're doing more than anybody else. But it's really cool how they do it. And
So
the '90s especially was a very very interesting time for rock music. There was a lot going on then.
so it's just more to facilitate the actual sound as it's not really that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's not super common. The Smashing Pumpkins, just one of my all-time favorite bands. Their first album, Gish, which actually, funnily enough, I brought up My Bloody Valentine. Billy Corgan said in an interview not long after they were starting to make it big that yeah, we pretty much just copied My Bloody Valentine, but their first album was pretty much just that. It was the music they made was the focus of the album, and the lyrics were just kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to make music. I mean, that's I dabble just for fun. I kind of make beats and stuff, and like obviously, like I'm not a lyricist by any means, so the beats are the focus of what I'm doing. So it's like I guess any lyrics I would add afterwards would be the secondary focus of it. I mean, that's an interesting thing. I didn't know that was like I think I'm a music fan and I love music, but like then I get to talking about this shit and you just mentioned like two different things, two different genres I'd never fucking heard of, and it's like I don't know. I guess my tastes are basic.
Yeah, definitely. If you're looking for new music to listen to, or at least stuff you haven't come across before, just
Mm,
dive headfirst into '90s rock.
yeah,
Like there was so much going on then
right.
that is obfuscated just because grunge was big because of Nirvana,
Yeah,
which they were like the shittiest of all the grunge bands. I
uh,
still don't understand why they were the big deal.
that's gonna be controversial.
I'm glad Dave Grohl got where he needed to be, but yeah, but because of grunge and alt rock, where you could just moan and make vowel noises, and that's every '90s alt rock song. But between those two genres, there was a lot going on that just went under the radar, and it's kind of a shame, but at the same time, it's kind of cool because it's a lot of that stuff was just pure creativity.
Well, and I've got a lot of respect for anybody that's an artist, but whatever it is, I mean, because I know the process that goes into it, I mean, is difficult. I mean, there's a lot of shit to do, and I mean, that's like I'm not willing. Used to, I would say like, oh, that song sucks or whatever, and now I kind of realize that song is. I'm not the target audience of that song. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there's somebody for that music, and just because it's not for me doesn't make it any less artistic or anything like that. It just it's not my type of music or whatever.
Now,
And
you do have some artists that their music is objectively just garbage, but
right,
that's the whole reason they're doing it. Like Death Grips or The Antwoord.
yeah.
It's like their music is just unequivocally trash. Like there's no there's
Well,
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they put on a show and there's a whole act to it.
do you know anything about this whole mumble rap thing, like XXX Tentacion or whatever the fuck his name is?
No, I see stuff about it on Instagram every once in a while. It's just I think it's just one of those. It's so bad that it's good. I'm familiar with the whole SoundCloud rapper cliche,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, I really don't know that much about it other than one of them is some Swedish kid that all of his songs were about doing opiates, and he died of an opiate overdose, and everybody's really shocked by it.
Right. Shh.
Um,
It's crazy,
I
right?
don't know, and I know there's the Skeeted guy who wants to fuck the girl from iCarly.
Uh
I,
huh.
I don't I don't know anything else about it though.
It's
And they
just
all they all have. Oh no, I do know about one. His name's like 6'9" or something like that,
yeah.
and he's got 69 tattooed all over his body, like his face and his arms and his chest and everything, and he's got his hair dyed like rainbow colors, and apparently he's a pedophile. But
Hell,
he's one of the big SoundCloud rappers from what I've gathered.
yeah. It's. I mean, in today's day and age, there's so many different options to get your brand out there or whatever. So I mean, I'm like I say, I'm not hating on anybody that's an artist. It's just some art is not for me, and that shit is not for me. It's just not. I don't know. I mean, I would consider myself a hip hop head. I love hip hop music, like, but I don't. I just can't get behind it, man. It seems
Well, I
too.
mean, you're not disrespecting the artistry behind it whenever you say that modern rap music sucks for the most part because it's not art. There is no artistry behind it. It's overproduced crap, and it's I don't know. You can kind of see the decline of it. Like I know Travis Scott is one that's big now,
Right.
and he as production wise, he's great. But the only reason his production's so good is because Kanye pulled the ultimate bunny out of a hat move by teaching Travis Scott everything he knew how to do
Mm.
so that he could be in two places at once. And then Travis Scott just became a solo artist. And from what I've heard, I don't think he's, aside from the music production, I don't think his music's very good. But um, yeah, I don't know. It seems like rap music as of the last 10 years is just low hanging fruit.
I mean, and that you're right. It's a lot of it seems to be more about making money than actually producing something that's good. I mean, and I'll be honest, I most days I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts. I mean, I've always been a fan. And I remember we talked about this back in the day, and you told me about some sort of music where it's just like people talking over like tracks or whatever. Like I don't know, but anyways, I've always been into talk radio,
Oh, you
and
mean just like spoken word type stuff?
I guess I don't know. I remember you telling me about this back in the day, like in high school, and you because I was talking to you about I really like talk radio, and you said, well, there's this brand of music that is basically just music, and then somebody's talking over it. Like I don't know exactly what you meant. It's been years ago, so I'm sure you probably don't remember either. But
Yeah, man. I was not sober for a lot of high school.
who was fuck high school now? But yeah, like honestly though, I mean, just a lot of days, man. I can't tell you the last time I just sat and listened to music all day while I was working. I'm listening to podcasts mostly, or yeah, that's about it. I mean, I listen to podcasts, and I'm still a music lover, but I just can't. Something about listening to the same stuff over and over and over again. And I have Apple Music, so it's like obviously, I could listen to basically anything I want to, but just something about listening to and the process of finding new music just is so almost exhausting to me in a way. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like what I like, and I'm very willing to venture outside, but I don't want to wade through 15 shitty songs just to find one good one on your album. Like, it just doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, it just
No,
doesn't.
I can understand that. It's I don't know. I listen to music all the time, but I don't really keep up with new music anymore. Like if I stumble across anything I end up liking, it's because it was in the YouTube suggestions or something like that.
Right.
I mean, I was a huge like just constantly voraciously looking for new music to listen to for probably up until like 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and but yeah, I don't know. I've kind of fallen, but I've fallen out of like all like new pop culture, like
Yeah.
anything. I haven't really watched new television in a few years, and
It's good.
none of the books I've read are new books.
Mm.
I'm constantly wading through the classics or just like obscure things I find. But
Well, it's because we're getting old as fuck, honestly.
I guess, but yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's with music. What I would always do is like take artists I liked and look up their history, their influences, people they've toured with, and just find jumping off points. And you end
Yeah.
up finding some really obscure stuff. And
I know you're a vinyl guy. I'm thinking about getting my collection started. Um, I never really listened to anything on vinyl until about a month ago. And I mean, I know it's cliche or whatever, but it really does kind of. I mean, like I know everybody.
I played. We played a couple of records when you came down and visited me.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
I think yeah, because I had the wall,
That's
and
right. That's right. Well, see, here's what. Okay, here's what it was. Then I went up and I hung out with a buddy of mine, and he was playing. What was it? I think Kendrick Lamar or Biggie, one of the two on vinyl, and it had like I say, I know everybody fucking says this, but it really did sound warmer. Like it felt like it filled the room a little better or
oh yeah.
something. Like it sounded so much different than like digital music, and I've been
Well, because
exclusive.
digital music, you're missing a few different ranges of sound. It's
Right.
that there's a few ranges. I don't know exactly how many it is or the parameters for it, but there's a few different or yeah, I don't even know what the measurements are. I'm just going to keep calling it ranges, but there's a few different ranges of sound that are missing from the recording
Yeah.
that you're only going to get with analog because they can't be compressed. And
Okay.
that's what digital music is. It's all of the file format compressed down to a smaller size.
Okay.
and with vinyl and with reel to reel, like the actual analog tape that the stuff's recorded on.
Yeah.
Which probably not so much anymore. I don't know what all goes into it, but yeah, you're getting the full effect of what was recorded in the studio.
Well,
It's
I can definitely tell, and like I said, I know it's. I hesitated to use that term because I feel like it's like a buzzword or something for anybody like a snob that only wants to listen to vinyl music or whatever. And not I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying like I've heard it so many times that it was almost like okay, I don't want to fall into that trap. But I mean, it was the only term I could come up with. Like hearing it, the vinyl, basically for the like I know I guess we listen to it, but hearing something I'm so used to hearing on digital, like through digital means, like from vinyl, it sounded a lot better. It really did, and
yeah,
it made me really want to start up a vinyl collection. I mean, I don't know. I was listening to some Neil Young recently, and I got
Harvest Moon.
Live at Rust,
Okay.
and great fucking album, by the way, but it really made me want to start a vinyl collection because I enjoyed it. I just enjoy that so much, and it's like the experience of putting down the record and dropping the needle and all that stuff. It just makes it, I guess, so much more personal, maybe or
Yeah.
something. I mean, it's just a different experience in a way.
Well, it's like growing up like we did, you never would have had access to because everything that went into playing music is the same that went into playing something on television
Yeah,
or reading or so. Like you're actually involved in making it play for yourself.
right.
Yeah, like old home theater systems, you had the actual projector and all that. It's as it gets simpler, it becomes less involved, and that's why you associate music with going to the gym or riding in the car because it's just something it's like your life has a soundtrack.
Yeah.
If you're listening to it like on an actual like sound system, you're in it, you're involved in getting it to play back for you,
Hmm.
and you wouldn't have that ordinarily.
It's good. I'm gonna look into it. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but it does. I don't know. It's so most of the time if I'm playing music here at home, I'm playing it on a Bluetooth speaker, so there's that tiny bit of delay and all that shit, and it's just degraded a tad bit and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and it's just I'd like to. Because I mean, I am a bit, even though I just said I rarely, I mean, I do listen to music, I just don't really seek it out anymore. It'd be nice to have that as opposed to just playing it over Bluetooth or something like that. It just seems like more up my alley.
Right. Well, just as far as a turntable goes, don't cheap out on it. Don't get one of those like what's the ones the Crosleys, like the 3-in-1.
Mm.
There's a bunch of reasons not to get one of those, but the biggest one is they have a non-replaceable needle,
Uh-huh.
and the cartridge is actually ceramic, and that'll tear your records up. So
Okay.
you're getting a cheap turntable, but you'll damage your records over
Yeah.
time. I don't know. My turntable's a Denon. I think it's the D300, DP300, something like that, and it's a fully automatic turntable. And I think I've had it going on 5 years now, and I've never had any issue with it.
I want to say I'm going to look it up real fast. Yeah, so last year, vinyl sales hit a 25-year high.
That was last year.
Last year,
Oh.
14% of all physical album sales in 2017. Wow.
Well, when I think I think it was like maybe 16 or 17 when I first started buying records, and I remember my dad just looking through my records and saying, this is what I miss that you don't get with CDs anymore, is you've got like actual album artwork to look at.
Right.
And with CDs and MP3s and stuff like that, so somebody might be a huge Rolling Stones fan,
Yeah.
and they have all the albums on their iPod or on Spotify or what have you, but they've only seen like a small thumbnail like JPEG of what the album cover looks like,
Yeah.
and then if they were to actually find the record and to look at it, it's like, oh shit, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of art design. Like they went through the trouble to commission an artist to design this album for them. There was a lot of work put into that.
Huh. That makes sense. That's and I've heard that from a different source as well. A podcast I was listening to, they were talking about it, and they were just saying the experience of going to the record store and looking through and finding the album you wanted, and talked about
Right.
the album artwork and all that stuff. Is just they were talking about how it kind of been lost in this modern age or whatever.
Sorry, I just unplugged my headphones. It didn't mess anything up, did it?
No, you're all good. Oh
Okay.
wait, hold on.
Yeah, it's you're exactly
Yellow.
right. Actually, I've got a good example too of what we're talking about.
Hey, feedback. Bit of a pause here, folks. Luke is off grabbing an album.
There you go.
He just said something, I didn't hear him. But that's all right.
I said I'll just be a couple of minutes.
He said he'll just be a couple of minutes, folks. That's what he said.
Yeah, this is Murder by Death's Red of Tooth and Claw. And you look at it and it's just like, a couple of scratchings, a little bit of ornate design.
Yeah.
And then you would see that on, like your iPod or whatever. And you just think, oh, that's, they put some effort into it.
Yeah.
Then you get the record and you actually open it up.
Damn. That's cool.
Yeah, and that's just the actual sleeve, or not the sleeve, the cover, and then you've got the sleeve that has its own designs to it, and then
oh wow,
it's neat. There's a lot of effort. I mean, I'm sure not anymore since everything's automated, but there's a lot of effort that goes into it. But,
that's really cool. Like I like the red. What is that called? A disc or
vinyl? The material is vinyl. That would be a record.
Is there another name for it? Like a record, I guess, or like just for the disc itself? Is there a name other than vinyl for it?
I don't know. I've always just called it a record.
Okay. Anyways, I like the red. I like the red on the record. That's really cool.
Yeah, but yeah, especially with like older albums. Like I've got a bunch of I've got Zeppelin 4, I've got The Wall, I've got Wish You Were Here. Actually, Zeppelin 4 is an original pressing. I don't. That's probably the luckiest I've ever been in my life, is getting an original pressing of Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good condition. But yeah, it's just like, I've been, I'd listened to music like that for like 10, 15 years, and I get the actual physical album and I open it up and there's all this artwork that I'd never seen before. It's really neat.
Yeah, that is cool. That's kind of a whole adds a new element to the whole experience.
Yeah,
that is cool. That's like I say, I'm about to pull the trigger on it. I have not done it yet, but I really would like to. I think it'd make music a little more. Kind of bring it back to maybe where it was for me back, a couple of years back.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't miss it all that much, which is strange. I mean, like I say, I love music. I don't know many people that don't, I guess, but it's just like I said before, man, the process of finding new music and listening to that, a song's never as good as the first time you hear it. It's always like you're chasing that high or whatever, I guess. I mean, and so it's
that's a good way of putting it.
And it's like I it's hard for me. Like I crave new content, and that's why I listen to the podcast all the time. Is because I feel like I'm actually kind of learning something or whatever. Just listening to interesting conversations and stuff like that. And I mean, it's just it's for my mind, it's a little more a little better, I think.
I've actually been listening to a lot of like older like video game soundtracks, and I'm trying to go to sleep just because a lot of it's fairly repetitive. But like Animal Crossing or Earthbound and stuff like that, and it's just it's neat how just like it's of course it's from a video game, so it's got to be looped and repetitive and all that. But it's not. There's not like a whole lot of effort that goes into composing it too, but it's neat for the most part. It's cheerful and it's just it's cool because you can kind of it like sets the mood. It's relaxing.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm always looking for new shit to listen to when I'm trying to sleep because I've had insomnia since I was a child and it's not going away anytime soon. But yeah, I'll go through spells where I'm just listening to like the most obscure or random stuff, like it's just like background noise trying to go to sleep.
Yeah. Huh. See, I'm the type I can't have. I gotta have silent. Well, I have a fan, so I guess that white noise aspect of it. But I can't do. I couldn't do music because my mind. I'm gonna focus on listening to the music, and it's not gonna allow me to. I guess to slow my head down or whatever.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. That's why I have the music is to kind of relax me and then that helps me go to sleep. But otherwise my mind will just be racing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like if I'm like exhausted, I can usually go to sleep fairly easily, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Huh. Yeah. It's I don't know. Lights, no problem. I guess even like TV background noise isn't really an issue if I'm tired, but I can't not focus on something if it's in my periphery or whatever. It's just I don't know. However, my head works. Like I can't not focus on something. So if I hear something, I'm gonna be listening to it, and it's like I'm gonna fall right to sleep or not fall
Right.
asleep. I'm gonna be focused on it too much.
No, I can understand that. It's sleep is something that really interests me quite a bit. I don't know if it's because I've always had such a problem with it
Hmm.
or how easily it comes to other people. It's just like a very trivial thing. Like, on when I'm having I'll usually have a pretty bad episode with my insomnia, usually like probably once or twice a month.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just like it's this thing I'm chasing that just most people don't even think about. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the whole aspect behind it. Like I taught myself to lucid dream when I was a teenager,
Uh huh.
and I don't do that anymore because that's there's a whole slew of shit that comes from that. But
What do you mean?
that it's like if you do it too often, like once you learn the whole like and it's different for everybody, but you learn all the mechanisms behind it and how to actually start and engage within a lucid dream.
Yeah.
Um, it start like the whole point of your dreams, like you think it's like, man, I had that dream the other night. It's yeah, I can't remember it. It's just I remember little bits of it. With
Hmm.
a lucid dream, you're remembering all of it. Like you're actually forming memories based off of your dream.
Yeah.
So you start to get confused if you do it too often. It's like, did that really happen? Like it's not like, did I dream that? Like the kind of deja vu thing. It's like
Yeah.
you're like that actually could have happened because it's in the same place in your memory that regular everyday memories that you form are stored.
Holy shit. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you start wondering if you're having waking dreams. That and sleep paralysis becomes a lot more likely
Yeah.
if you're lucid dreaming actively because with lucid dreaming, what you're essentially doing is keeping your brain awake while your body goes to sleep,
Uh huh.
and then kind of placing your brain in like a waking dream, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
But you wake up from that waking dream, then your body's still asleep, but your brain's wide awake. So then you
Hmm.
get sleep paralysis.
Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, a couple of times. I know how to beat it too,
Did
but
you? Do you ever
before I
see?
before I learned how to, it was fucking terrifying.
Do you ever see like the figure or whatever that people talk about?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
That
It's
must have been fucking terrifying.
well, you know what causes that, right?
I don't. I don't. I've only read about it a little bit, so I don't really know any
Uh,
details.
it's horrifying whenever you whenever you don't really know what goes into it.
Yeah.
But basically, when your brain's low on oxygen, you start to hallucinate.
Uh huh.
I used to talk to was it there were a couple of guys in the Coast Guard that I knew that would talk about the wizard.
Yeah.
And whenever I went into the military myself, I found out exactly what it was. But they talk about, oh, if you drown, you'll start to see the wizard. And I was like, the wizard? What are they talking about? And then I got to experience it for myself. When you start to drown,
Hmm.
or just have any like massive rapid depletion of oxygen in your brain,
Yeah.
you start hallucinating. And typically you'll start hallucinating, based off of a variety of factors, filtration of light, shadows, things like that, reflections. And more common than not, because you're having what's essentially a panic attack,
Hmm.
you'll start hallucinating things that could potentially be harmful to you. And so primal fear, what scares people more than anything? something that you don't know what it is, but it looks very similar to us. And
Yeah.
that's the shadow people you hear, them talk about. It's that's primally that's what scares people more than anything, that uncanny valley effect.
Yeah. Right.
It's something that looks like us as people, but you know that it's not a person.
Yeah.
It's something else. You just don't know what it is, and it might hurt you. That's like the primeval fear instilled in our brains. And so when you start to, whenever you start to hallucinate because of a lack of oxygen, you hallucinate a dark humanoid figure.
Yeah.
But what's causing it is, I mentioned that your brain is awake while your body's asleep.
Yeah.
Your body has a regulated amount of oxygen while you're asleep. Your breathing slows down quite a bit. I don't know exactly how much, but it's a good portion compared to when you're awake. Well, your brain is awake, so it starts to think, hey, I'm not getting enough oxygen, even though it's getting plenty of oxygen. So it starts panicking, and it starts shutting down your body because it's not getting enough oxygen. And that's what causes sleep paralysis. You can't move. It feels like you're not breathing enough, like there's something standing on your chest. And some people even hallucinate that the shadowy figure is standing on their chest, because that's what makes their brain, that makes sense to them. Something's pressing down on the chest, and that's why it can't breathe.
Yeah.
But it's completely imaginary, but it's terrifying if it happens and you don't know what it is. But the way to beat sleep paralysis is just to hold your breath.
Hold your breath.
If you realize you're having sleep paralysis, hold your breath and you'll wake up.
Huh. That must be fucking insane though. Like I couldn't imagine. I've never experienced it, so I don't know. But like that must be crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. Like I practiced lucid dreaming for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 months maybe, and eventually, at the first couple of times sleep paralysis happened to me, it was just terrifying. Even when I knew what to do to get out of it, like the third or fourth time I went through it, I was like, okay, I know what to do, but I'm still like panicking. And then after a while, it was just like, this again? Come on, just let me wake up for real.
So, like when you come to after like a night of lucid dreaming or whatever, are you like your body's asleep but your mind is awake? So are you getting rest? Like, do you feel tired or?
It depends. Typically, your most active dreaming, at least as I understand it, your most active, like when you dream, is going to be during your REM cycle anyway.
Yeah.
So depending on what all factors are going into it, yeah, you could basically be jump starting your REM sleep cycle. You could be drastically taking away from it. There's a lot of different things that go into it. And I'm not really smart enough to give you a straight answer, but yeah, I don't know. For me, sometimes I would wake up and I'd be super groggy. I wouldn't feel well rested at all. And then other times, I'd feel fine. It just depends.
Let's see what. Come on now. Let's see what old Google has to say. Because I'm curious about that. I'm curious if you're actually getting any rest or.
Basically, if you're not getting REM sleep, you're not resting, which is why they say not to fall asleep drunk or high, because you won't start your REM cycle.
Right.
That's why I mentioned my insomnia. Anytime I mention that to other people, they'll be like, "Oh, just drink yourself to sleep." I was like, "That's counterintuitive. That won't work."
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Well, according to what I'm reading here, which it's Quora, I can't find anything other than like message boards. The World of Lucid Dreaming, that doesn't sound very good. Huffington Post. No, that's what your dreams say. Yeah, I don't know. According to what I saw, you get the rest. You just don't do. Let's see. It may affect sleep quality. Lucid dreaming itself does not have an effect on sleep quality. I don't know. I'm getting differing answers here. I'm too lazy to actually fucking do actual research. So,
welcome to the internet, my friend.
That's what we do on this show. We just spread misinformation and talk shit, tell dick jokes.
I read an interview a few years ago with one of the people that works for Snopes, and they were like, what's the most common question you get, or what's the most common criticism? And he's like, people constantly saying, like, he's like, it's almost a 50-50 split. People constantly saying that we have a liberal bias or that we have a conservative bias. It's like nobody can make up their minds what our political bias is.
Right.
Despite the fact that we disclose every single time we post something that this this is truly just like nonpartisan. This is just the facts.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how it tickles him so much that people get so invested into what their leanings might be and how that affects what their answers are.
Yeah. That's something I'm trying to kind of work on. Is I guess I don't know what I would consider myself. Liberally conservative is a word I've been throwing around, a little term I came up with because I really don't know. Like I lean left on some issues, I lean right on other issues, and so I'm really trying to.
You mean like the what is it? Socially liberal, fiscally conservative?
Yeah, basically, like I don't know,
Yeah.
like I believe I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also don't think gay people shouldn't be allowed to get married or anything like that. Like I'm basically like, do your thing as long as it's not affecting somebody else, then who the fuck cares? Like I'm very, I'm for like weed legalization, immigration, shit like that. So I'm left leaning there, but also like guns and I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It's a weird dichotomy, I guess I got for myself. But one thing I'm really trying to focus on, and I think it's something that has become a major issue for a lot of people in the last couple of years, is not allowing your leanings to affect how you view something. I mean, because it's like everything has become so politicized in a way or whatever. Like it's just weird. Like I don't know. I feel like it's hard to, which I guess the media corporations aren't doing us any favors, but it's hard to find anything that's not doesn't have some sort of bias to it. And then it's like,
Oh yeah.
if you only focus on that stuff, you're never gonna. Like, I don't know. I'll kind of like to like I'll read an article from Fox and then I'll read an article from CNN or something, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. I feel like, and so I don't know. It's
I don't know, just that's all you can do is compile a bunch of sources, find the correlating information, and accept that that's the fact.
hmm,
There's a lot of fluff in the news, like an overwhelming amount,
yeah.
and it's padding for bad journalism. It's people they say there's no journalists left, and I tend to agree with that.
Well, I mean, it seems like everybody's more worried about virtue signaling, and I know that's become a hot topic word or whatever. But it seems like if you don't check off box X, Y, and Z, you can't be a part of our team anymore, and blah blah blah. And so it just turns into like everybody's trying to appear one way, or everything they write has to fit into a certain mold, and so it's like I just don't feel like you said, I don't think there's any true journalists left. I mean, I'm sure there are a few.
It's not that simple, and people seem to think it is. You got to keep in mind too that politics now isn't what it was like 40 years ago, or maybe even less recent than that. But all politics is identity politics now.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground. You're with us, against us, and everybody has their own. It's very cliquey almost.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I've never been of the mind that things are that simple. Like if I say I'm a Democrat, we talked about this. I think actually on one of our past episodes. But if I say I'm a Democrat, you've already, because of the word Democrat, you already have a bunch of ideas in your head that are associated with that word.
Right.
So you immediately think, okay, well, he's a Democrat, so he's all of these things, and that's not necessarily the case. But I don't know. Like I know a few Democrats that are NRA members, so
Right.
it's just that you can't split things. Like things aren't that black and white. In some cases, they're not black and white at all. But
Well,
I don't
the
know.
world is not black and white, and so I mean, hey, could you throw the headphones back in? I'm getting some feedback.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good.
Better now?
Yeah. But yeah, it's. I mean, the world is not black and white. I mean, there's gray everywhere, and so it's. You can't put yourself in these boxes or whatever. I I don't know. It's become such an issue. Everybody's talking about it these days, and I'm almost like worn out with all this shit. Like it's just I don't understand. Like, what's so wrong with being team human? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, why do we all have to be team red or team blue? Like, what the fuck is what's the
Because
point?
people like to feel special, and people don't like ideas that challenge them. That's not safe.
Mm,
It's and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I find it sadly ironic that all of the right wingers now are harping on the you're a bunch of snowflakes. You can't, you have to have your safe spaces. try bringing up religion around them.
Yeah.
The Christianity might, which stemming from the Bible, the book that they haven't read, they've only heard some old retired guy talk about at their church. Um, Try bringing that idea up around them. That hey, maybe Christianity isn't the answer here,
Yeah.
and they lose their shit.
Right.
Try suggesting, hey, maybe you don't need to have access to assault or not assault rifles, but anything other than a handgun or a non-pump action shotgun. They lose their fucking mind. They can't handle any dissenting opinion, and they make fun of the other group that does the exact same thing that they do,
Mm.
pretending like they don't do it. It's nobody on any side of the political spectrum likes having their ideas challenged anymore. It doesn't matter if they're the cliche millennial snowflake. It doesn't matter if they're the 70-year-old man.
Yeah.
Challenge people's ideas anymore. You're picking a fight with them,
Now,
which isn't how it should be.
do you think that's a recent thing, or is that something that's always kind of been part of the spectrum?
I think people are more receptive to it now than they used to be.
Okay.
It's people are more gung ho. Like, oh, they're starting an argument with me. I think that ideology is more prevalent now, and it
Yeah.
will become more and more prevalent as the baby boomers start to die out.
Right.
But I also think that we're seeing more of it because of social media. You look at
Yeah.
Facebook, and that's basically a sounding board for people in their 40s and 50s who were upset about something they saw on television.
Right.
It's I mean I see screen caps of it every once in a while, but I quit using Facebook about 3 years ago or so. But I remember I would see posts that would pop up like on the random feed or trending or whatever, and it would always be somebody in their 40s or 50s that were like, oh well, the liberals, oh the conservatives. It's
Well,
that's what it turned into.
and the thing about that too, and I think they've taken steps recently to kind of correct it, but the way their algorithm worked is the things you liked, eventually it like congregated into only you'd see things that you would like, and so it became an echo chamber, and it made a lot of people think that everybody thought the same way they did because they never saw those dissenting opinions. And I'm sure that had something to do with it as well. I mean, if all you ever see is something that agrees with what you think, then it's going to be kind of a shocker when you realize, oh, everybody doesn't think this way.
Yeah, well, and people talk about the 2016 election, like we've never seen the country so divided between two candidates, or what was going on politically. So that's complete and absolute horseshit. You're more exposed to it because it's all over the place. Never before was an election that viral because of the internet. You've got Donald Trump who uses Twitter like his hearse is double parked, and it's just it's there was so much going on the social media side of things in that election that you could not get away from it.
That's true.
And no election before that, even the 2012 election, which is the closest one, it was even close to that.
Well, and
It was so divisive because people were so up on each other on social media,
honestly,
and you saw it all the time.
the 2012 election, I don't think there was any chance at all that Obama was going to lose that. I really don't. I mean,
Nah.
there was no way. I just don't.
Aaron, I'm a simple man, and I think of myself as a reasonable man. But I'm going to tell you right now, there is no way that I'm having a goddamn Mormon in my White House. That is not happening. That is not going to happen.
Well, you let a goddamn Muslim in there, so what?
He's born in Africa.
Kenya. That's what I heard.
Where's the birth certificate?
Fuck, I'm still waiting on that birth certificate, if I'm being honest. But no,
I don't even care where he was born. I just want to see what he used as the background. I wanted to see what hospital he was from.
No, I do see your point though. I mean, okay. Do you think a lot of this is the result of a generation of people that were given participation trophies for everything? Do you think that has anything to do with this?
No, I don't. I think that it comes from 3 generations of people who, as society has advanced, now have nothing better to do. They don't have real things to get upset about. And again, I will argue this point till I'm red in the face, which not really, because I find it hard to get actually emphatic about anything at all ever. But I simply don't have the motivation. But
I feel you.
it's you know the look, I mean we're the millennials. We get shit on all the time. We're lazy. We have no work ethic. Blah blah blah. We don't understand anything. We're ignorant. Every generation says that about the generation that comes after them. Like
Right.
they're hot shit.
Right.
When if you look back in time, they're the generations that have fucked everything up for the
Mm.
ones coming after them. So it's basically just hypocrisy unfolding on itself. And with all of social media and with technology and media in general being where they're at, we've kind of reached this new like status quo where everybody's just kind of spinning in circles and we're all a different demographic, but that doesn't matter anymore because we all have the same platform to communicate on.
Hmm.
So that's that. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's hypocrisy. You have people attacking people from another generation for one thing, and then it just falls back on them because they were the same thing in their generation, and they're not doing anything about the problem now, and they're being equally, they're being equally bad about it because they're doing nothing but complaining on social media.
Hmm.
It's it's snake eating its own tail, man.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree. Um, I I hesitate to use the term snowflake, but I mean, part of me does think, and it's a bit of a personal theory of mine that I don't think it was because going back to the participation trophy thing, like it forced everybody to focus on only the good, right? And so any sort of criticism is like everybody's been spending the last 18 years telling me I was fucking perfect, so now you're gonna tell me I'm wrong? No, I won't have that. Like and I might be wrong. It's just, like I say, it's just a personal theory of mine. But I don't think. And of course, that was the whole. I heard that so many times coming up or whatever. But it's like I don't think it's necessarily a good thing.
Mm.
But I don't know. I mean, of course, all this shit that's going on, I do think it's good for our society, right? I think, this awareness of social issues and that sort of thing is definitely beneficial, but I think we're going through some growing pains, maybe, with that. And it's going to
Yeah.
be, it's going to be a bit of a process to get us to where we're kind of back to normal again. And I mean, I do think all this shit's kind of on a pendulum, right? It's going to swing one way, and then it's going to swing back the other way, and then it's just going to keep going back and forth because people are going to
Yeah.
get sick of one aspect of it and shift the whatever. And I think that's a lot of why Donald Trump got elected, is people were tired of the PC culture or whatever you want to call it, and they saw this guy that's willing to speak his mind, whether or not he's right or wrong, but he's willing to say what he thinks and believes. And I think people kind of craved that. They're tired of cookie cutter politicians that all fit into the same mold and never have any you know un unpopular opinions or anything like that. They're tired of focus group politicians. They want somebody that's a genuine, real person. And
Mm.
I think that's a lot of why Trump got elected.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at all just about all of our past presidents, at least the ones relevant to society as we know it now, and aside from Ronald Reagan, they've all been lawyers.
Hmm.
It's yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, I don't think picking a millionaire real estate mogul and television reality show host, I don't think that I don't think that echoes the ideology of the industrial blue collar worker,
Yeah.
which kind of strikes me as ironic because that was I mean he won like every Rust Belt and industry state.
Yeah.
I don't understand like working for Bethlehem Steel for 30 years and then seeing Donald Trump and being like, yeah, I can relate to him.
He
Like
gets
that
me.
doesn't make any sense to me. But
No.
he said what a lot of people wanted to hear, and he's done quite a bit to deliver on his promise for what he said for the most part, at least from what I've seen. I haven't really been paying much attention to anything going on politically in quite some time, but
It's I don't know what to think. I don't know. See, the thing is, I don't know what to believe anymore because it seems like every media organization has its fucking bias, and they're sticking to that, and so it's hard to find anything that doesn't immediately praise or talk shit about Trump like in a roundabout way. Like there needs to be like a centrist fucking organization that comes forward to deliver news because I'm tired of everybody has their bias, man, and it's hard to know what to believe without reading, multiple sources to try and come up with it, which I guess is, as a responsible citizen, I guess you're supposed to do that so you can kind of figure out, the truth of what's going on or whatever. But it's hard to find something that doesn't already have that bias like automatically built in.
I was actually talking with Ethan the other day about a comedy sketch
Hmm.
about like they would operate a lot like ISIS or Al Qaeda, but they're a moderate terrorist group. They're fighting as guerrillas and for political nonpartisanship. It's like there's
Uh-huh.
answers on both sides.
That's
Split
funny.
ticket is not the death of the American voting system.
That's funny.
It's like they're aggressively moderate. They're
Yeah.
radical moderates, radical centrists.
I like that. I could get behind that movement.
You see the videos and they're unsure if they want to cut the guy's head off or not, so they just stop halfway and like hook him up to oxygen or something.
You'll be all right, buddy. That's funny.
You can't decide what to do.
Well,
There's an impasse. We have to negotiate.
I kind of feel like all this shit is like a kid throwing a tantrum, right? And as soon as an answer gets put forward or somebody's like, okay, all right, stop crying. What the fuck do you want? Like, I don't think anybody really knows. I really don't. I think people just like to be heard. I think they like to complain, and so if you give them an audience, they're gonna keep fucking going. And they don't really know what they want. I don't know that anybody really knows what they want. I mean,
Well, that nobody. Pardon me.
Luke.
Uh, that was a bad one. I'm sorry. Anyways, I don't feel like anybody really understands anything anymore. I
Mm,
really don't. It's you listen to people go on and on about what even if it's not politics, just they heard something or they read a headline. It's nobody's educated on anything anymore. It's like
no.
I'll tell you, wait until the next election and
Yeah.
start asking people, what policies by this candidate do you like? And so
Yeah.
what can you say about their platform?
Right.
Nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Most people don't know what the three branches of our government are. Most people have never read our constitution. Most people don't know if we lost all of our rights tomorrow, they can't name any right that they lost aside from Amendment 1 and 2, and that's
Right.
it.
Right.
And they know 19 because of booze, and they know 18 because of the you guys want to hear a joke? Women's rights. And those are the only amendments they know because they're referenced very, very heavily in pop culture and current
Right.
events.
Yeah. I mean, it's up.
I did a paper my freshman year at college on voter ignorance, and I did quite a bit of research for it, probably way more research than I needed to, but that's just because uh, it's like the more you dig, the worse it gets. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Like, well, I mean, like what you and I have both been going through at work the last couple of weeks. Like, the more you dig, the more shit you find.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh god, it just keeps piling up. This just gets fucking worse.
It's
But that was what the research for this paper was, and this I think probably one of the most daunting things about it is yeah, there's all these stats about what people know, all that. They did a big census with like a control group of people,
yeah.
and it had a whole list of all these different politicians that were currently active, elections going on, and it was basically like, what can you say about any of them? Like, pick any of them. What can you say? What are their policies? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And most people couldn't match politicians to their policies. There were a lot of people. There were a lot of people saying that what's his name? The North Carolina clean energy guy. I
Oh.
can't. Richard Burr.
Yeah,
They
Richard.
were
Yeah.
saying Richard Burr was like a proponent of wind energy or something like that,
Uh-huh.
which at the time he wasn't.
Right.
And it's just nobody knew anything. And then they split this group farther down, and they had all been split ticket voters in the past.
Huh.
So they weren't split ticket voters because they wanted to split their vote down the middle. They were split ticket voters because they didn't want to be wrong. They didn't know enough about anything they were voting on, so they chose the middle ground so they wouldn't look fucking stupid when they told their friends, who they voted for.
And I mean, I can't lie. I could definitely relate to that in some aspects, but it's like, I don't
Well,
know.
it's too much. It's too much information
Yeah,
to just go headlong into politics and educate yourself as much as you can. Just like with anything,
right.
it's daunting and it's very easy to get discouraged because there's so much information out there,
Right.
and there's so much to because before. I've always been of the mind that before you have an opinion, you need to have the facts down and then
Yeah.
form your opinion based off of those facts.
Right.
There's just too much information out there to do it. You can't just like set a couple hours aside. No, I'm going to teach myself about the Austrian school. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way,
Right.
and it's daunting and it drives people away, and it sucks because there's no easier way to do it. Either you're in it to win it, or you just kind of shove it off to the side.
Huh.
Which is why I think that there should be. I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on it, but I think there should be some type of voter registration that requires you to show what your political knowledge is, because anybody can vote. And I don't know. It's that's how things have gotten so bad.
I mean,
Is
I believe that voting is a right, but I also think it's our responsibility as citizens of this society to educate yourself. And so it's like, where does that middle ground? Where is the middle ground in that? Like,
well, the Constitution and how the Federalist Papers constantly talk about civic responsibility
yeah,
whenever it comes to your rights,
right.
and nobody earns their rights,
No, they
and
don't.
I don't either, but it's rights are a dues paid kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's not like Jesus died on the cross, so you get to do whatever you want now. It's no, there's still actual actions that need to be taken before you do something.
yeah,
If
right.
you're doing things out of ignorance, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, and you're going to cause some damage.
Well, and I mean, I think a lot of and it's probably has to do with how our school systems are based, but it's like everybody just regurgitates facts. They don't actually do the research themselves. Like I don't think that, obviously, somebody that's like a STEM major or something like that has to have a deep understanding of the subject they're going into. But, just to graduate high school, all you need is an understanding of the facts. There's not really you don't have to actually understand a concept. You just have to be able to write the right answer down on a test. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it's and you can't. I don't know. It's hard to do that when it comes to things that are actually opinion based.
yeah,
It's I feel things should be this way. It's like
right.
and as time goes on, we'll start to move more and more towards that. But for right now, it's not that. Like right now, it's anybody who has an understanding of history and an understanding of just the history of politics. Uh, Communism is a bad idea.
Yeah,
It looks good on paper, but it doesn't take free will into account. It doesn't take humanity into account. It doesn't take into account the fact that humanity is not inherently good. We're actually quite shitty, and we're
right.
cowardly, and we're not very smart, and we're impulsive. And communism doesn't work because once somebody who has it all figured out they can figure out how to exploit it,
Hmm.
will rise to power through it, and they'll just shit the whole thing up.
Hmm.
But people who don't have that understanding will look at communism and think, this is a pretty bad idea. Everybody's equal because on paper it looks
It
great,
does. Yeah.
but that's not good enough for people. That's not how people work,
No,
and it
it's
wouldn't
not.
be good enough for anybody. That system can't work. It's corruptible. But and I'm just using that as an example, but it's that kind of ignorance it begets quite a bit of damage as time goes on, and we'll get to the point where hundreds of years from now we know what does and doesn't work.
Hmm.
We may have abandoned capitalism in favor of a new school of economics that works flawlessly and without a hitch and keeps everybody happy. We may move towards that utopia. I don't know what it'll take to get there, but that may be the case at some point in time, and people will be looking back at our era and be like, what the fuck were those guys doing?
Barbarians.
Yeah.
Do you think? Okay, so I guess final question because I have to go get my pops. But do you think a lot of this is overblown? Because when I have conversations with people, in my daily life, none of this ever really gets brought up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody seems. I think most people at the end of the day are pretty basic. Like, you provide for them, you provide for their family. As long as their family's eating and they're eating, who gives a fuck? Like, do you think a lot of this is a bit overblown?
Yes and no. I think being opinionated is something that is rehearsed with a lot of people,
Hmm.
so it only comes up in certain situations. But um, Yeah, I don't, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. Definitely, like I was saying earlier, when it comes to the media, we see more and more of it, but
Yeah,
then again, it's quantity over quality.
right.
So there's no telling how deep it actually runs. I'm not entirely sure. I think for the most part, people just want to exist and they want to be happy. And I
Yeah,
think whenever it crosses that threshold where that gets in the way of how they want to live their life, that's when they start becoming involved, which you could make the argument that then it's too late or that people are getting involved for the wrong reasons. But
yeah.
yeah, that's not really for me to say.
And
But
see, I kind of and I haven't really fleshed this out yet, but something I've thought about is like, what if all this hate of the left, so to speak, of like these radical leftist people, what if it has something to do with trying to radicalize the right in a way? So you keep pushing this narrative of the left being these, ultra progressive, making these dumb, calls and all that stuff. What if it's really just to radicalize the right in a way? Not radicalize, well, yeah, radicalize. I mean, what if it is just to kind of turn people against all that to kind of bring the right, the conservative ideals to the forefront or something like that?
well, let's say that you're unequivocally correct in that,
Mm,
and that there's somebody high up in a chair somewhere twiddling their mustache who's like okay, he's got to go, he knows too much. You're about 500 years too late. The platforms flip like every like 20 or 30 years. That's
mm,
just how it goes, and it probably goes back a thousand or so years, but
yeah,
that's just how politics operate. Once money gets involved, platforms flip and it becomes a show, and all the monkeys dance, and the people that are there to be entertained and profit off of it clap.
are you
It's
not entertained?
you hear a lot of talk about how you especially hear it from the alt right. It's like, oh well, the left are the real fascists,
Yeah,
which you could get into a never ending argument over horseshoe theory and whether fascism is left wing or right wing, blah
yeah,
blah blah. And that's literally one of those arguments that it's like the value of pi. You will never get to the end of it. It just can't be done.
right.
But really, what it comes down to is that you'll have just dissenting ideas that will jump back and forth from one side of things. And in the U.S., you brought up an echo chamber earlier. That's essentially what we've created in the U.S. as the last like 220 years is an echo chamber. We're the only functioning democracy that has less than four political parties, and they both flip flop on their stances all the time because they want to vilify the other one every 60 or 70 years.
For the record, Luke put democracy in air quotes, and I agree with him on that one. Um, I mean, if
It's an oligarchy, Aaron. It's an oligarchy.
I mean, in all honesty, I'd say it's corporatocracy. I think more. I think there's a lot of money. I think a lot of these political entities, which, fun fact, actually are like individuals in the eyes of the courts or whatever. I think they have more power than any single individual ever has or ever will. Probably. I mean, it's amazing the influence they can bring to bear on our culture.
And people bring that up like some big conspiracy like with the Illuminati and the 13 families and all that, when that's just society. Whoever has money has the power.
No, yeah,
That's the direction we will always go in. It's people say, oh well, that's hearsay, or oh no, that's unequivocally true. It doesn't fucking matter. That's the direction we go in. Whoever has the most money, they withdraw.
right.
They withdraw from the public eye, and they do whatever they can to try and influence whatever's going on beneath them. That's just what happens. And it's nothing new. I mean, it's the exact same thing. You read about like Emperor Nero and
Yeah,
everything he did.
right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Just back then, nobody was going to oppose Nero,
yeah.
so it was publicly written about and everybody knew what was going on. Whereas now it's kept under wraps. But or at
Well,
least they try to. I know people have their compiled lists of who all's involved in it. The Rothschilds and all that. I don't think there's anything specific to it. I don't think there's any specific people that are involved in it. I just think money makes the world go round, and
yeah,
if you have money, you have influence.
that's true. I mean, it's not an idea. I guess I agree with. I don't, or from a, I guess a moral standpoint, I don't agree with it because obviously, just because you throw a lot of money at a problem doesn't necessarily mean that you're right or whatever. But it is. You're right. It's how the world works, and so I don't know. It's a tough issue. Uh,
People chalk so many things up as to good versus evil when they're aside from like crimes against humanity and stuff like that, there really isn't a good versus evil. Just people are going to do what they're going to do. It's not preordained. It's just there's a nature to it. There's a method to the madness. There's just a way that we operate, and there's so many different ways that the brain functions, which means that there's so many different types of people,
Yeah.
and all those different types of people fill their niches. They find their holes to fit into, and that's just what they do. And it's constantly going to continue operating that way,
Hmm.
and there's nothing we can do about it. And I don't know. That sounds really nihilistic, but I don't know.
No,
I don't want to sound nihilistic, but that's the only way to make sense of everything to me.
well, I don't know. I'm not advocating any sort of revolution, but it seems like the only way we'd be able to make any sort of change is through violence, and not nobody wants that. I mean, well, I'm sure somebody does, but I don't know that there's any way to kind of counterbalance this whole thing without breaking out the guillotine and making heads roll.
Hashtag moderate Muslim.
Well,
That's my edgy joke for the night.
on that note, folks, we support ISIS 100%, and
Boko Haram too. Wolf Cola.
basically anybody that hates Western culture, we can get behind. Um, Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.